Welcome back. This is lesson 3.2. In this lesson, I will cover the spread of superheroes from comic books to movie, serials, and to animation. By the end of this lesson, you should have a good understanding of movie serials and their place in American culture in the 1940s and 1950s, why studios made superhero movie serials, animated cartoons and their place in American culture in the 1930s and 1940s, and the significance of the Superman cartoon. Movie or film serials date from around 1910. Basically, they consisted of a weekly episode running about 20 minutes and were shown before feature films or perhaps in a newsreel cinema. Generally, the serials were about 13 to 15 episodes. Before TV became a viable operation, many cities had newsreel cinemas. These were often nearby a larger cinema. There was, for instance, a newsreel cinema in Grand Central Station in New York. Newsreel cinemas generally played a 20-minute or so news feature on a continuous loop. Before TV, it was a way to see images with news. These were both information and entertainment of a sort. Here are a couple of links that will show a plane crashing into the Empire State Building and the Tacoma Bridge collapse. Movie serials, as I said, dated back to 1910 or so. One of the earliest of these was The Perils of Pauline from 1914. In each weekly episode, Pauline would be in some danger at the end of the episode. Because in some serials this might involve almost being forced off a cliff, such a narrative technique became known as a cliffhanger. After sound was introduced to movies in the 1920s, these sort of serials grew very popular. Comic strips like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon were adapted to this form of entertainment. You can view one of these Flash Gordon serials, Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe, because someone forgot to renew the copyright. On May 2nd, Jack Leibowitz wrote to Jerry Siegel to tell him DC had sold Republic Pictures the right to do a Superman movie serial. DC received $8,000 for the rights, which today would be about $136,000. That's not a lot of money, but okay, I wouldn't mind having that. But again, DC foresaw a tie-in effect. But DC cancelled this deal when it received a better offer to do an animated version of Superman from Paramount Pictures. Meanwhile, though, other superheroes appeared in movie serials. Here is a link to the original Captain Marvel as published by Fawcett Comics. He is now known as Shazam and published by DC, and a totally different character called Captain Marvel is published by Marvel Comics. There's a whole history to this that I'll go into a little bit in Module 7. After DC cancelled the deal with Republic, the studio approached Fawcett Publications, which produced the Captain Marvel comic book. A deal was signed and the resulting 12-part serial was released beginning in March 1941. It was the first superhero serial. DC was angered by this, and in a lawsuit against Fawcett for copyright infringement in their Captain Marvel character, they also named Republic Pictures. The Captain Marvel serial, though, was successful, and Republic, looking for another superhero, did a deal with Fawcett for another of their characters, Spy Smasher. This serial was released in 1942. With these two serials done, Republic still wanted more superheroes and turned to Timely Comics for Captain America. The serial was released in February 1944. This version of Captain America was only loosely based on the comic book character. Meanwhile, DC authorized Columbia to do a Batman serial. Released in 1943, this serial was so popular that in 1949, Columbia made a sequel, Batman and Robin. This has been released on DVD. These two serials changed the way Alfred, Bruce Wayne's butler, was represented in comic books, with the comic adapting to the actor's appearance in the serial. Between the first Batman serial and the second Batman and Robin, Columbia produced a Superman serial in 1948. This too proved popular, and Columbia produced a sequel in 1950. Production values on both these serials were rather low, and Superman's flight scenes were depicted in animation. This brings us to our first key point. Movie serials were very popular. Whereas Superman had been the only character to succeed in other media before movie serials, the serials showed that other superheroes could make the transition from comic books to other media. Superman was the first superhero to appear in an animated cartoon. The reason that Superman did not appear in a Republic Studios movie serial was that DC received a better offer from Paramount Studios for a series of animated cartoons. Animated cartoons developed alongside comic strips. Winsor McCay, who drew Little Nemo in Slumberland, a very important early comic strip, also produced animated cartoons. His Gertie the Dinosaur from 1914 is regarded as one of the key early animated cartoons. Other early cartoons included Felix the Cat, Coco the Clown, and Betty Boop. The creators of the last two characters, the Fleischer Brothers, also had a hit with Popeye as a cartoon. One of the brothers, Max, invented the rotoscope, which for many years became a standard piece of technology for animation. The Fleischer Brothers owned their studio, but their cartoons were distributed to cinemas through Paramount Studios. When Paramount asked the Fleischers to create Superman cartoons for distribution by Paramount, they agreed because they needed the money. The first of these Superman cartoons was released on September 26, 1941. The Fleischer Brothers studio produced 9 of these up to August 1942. The studio then was dissolved, partially because of financial issues and also because Max and his brother Dave stopped talking to each other. New studio, Famous Studios, was created out of the remnants of Fleischer, and it produced 8 more Superman cartoons up to July 1943. As I mentioned in Lesson 2.2, when I mentioned the Superman anti-Japanese World War II cartoon, all of these cartoons are out of copyright because, again, somebody forgot to renew copyright. And you can download them at the Internet Archive. But there are better quality versions on YouTube that Warner's has cleaned up digitally. These versions are copyright, but they were put on YouTube by Warner's, so it's legal for me to link you to those. This is our second key point. Of all the early superheroes, Superman was the most popular and appeared in the most forms of media. And key point 3, although movie serials featured several superheroes, that form declined with the advent of television. At the same time, in the early 1950s, superheroes were mostly on the decline in comic books. With that, we end this lesson. This lesson has 3 key points. Go back over your notes and the video of the lesson to make sure you have noted these points. Next up, Lesson 3.3, Superheroes in Television.